The Alps are the highest and most extensive mountain range system that lies entirely in Europe, stretching approximately 1,200 kilometers across 8 alpine countries: France, Switzerland, Italy, Monaco, Liechtenstein, Austria, Germany, and Slovenia. The mountains were formed over tens of millions of years as the African and Eurasian tectonic plates collided. Extreme shortening caused by the event resulted in marine sedimentary rocks rising by thrusting and folding into high mountain peaks such as Mont Blanc and the Matterhorn. Mont Blanc spans the French-Italian border, and at 4,810 meters is the highest mountain in the Alps. The Alpine region area contains about 100 peaks higher than 4,000 meters. The altitude and size of the range affects the climate in Europe. In the mountains, precipitation levels vary greatly and climatic conditions consist of distinct zones. Wildlife such as ibex live in the higher peaks to elevations of 3,400 meters, and plants such as edelweiss grow in rocky areas in lower elevations as well as in higher elevations. Evidence of human habitation in the Alps goes back to the Paleolithic era. A mummified man, determined to be 5,000 years old, was discovered on a glacier at the Austrian-Italian border in 1991. Mont Blanc Massif is the most superb area of the Alps, not only because of its highest summit, but also especially because of its wilderness, the big rock and ice faces which fall down steeply. The mountains of the Mont Blanc Massif are more varied than the other groups of the Alps. Mont Blanc is the highest peak in the Alps. To climb this beautiful mountain is truly a memorable experience. The magnificent scenery and final, exposed summit ridge makes this perhaps the finest snow route in the Alps. The ascent offers a relatively straightforward, high-altitude climb in a dramatic alpine setting suitable for both beginner and intermediate climbers with some mountaineering experience. In addition to the outstanding views and rugged terrain, climbers will experience well-maintained hut system, European culture, and fabulous food. These features make for a genuinely enjoyable climbing experience. Mountaineering is more than climbing, panoramic views, and wilderness experience. It is also challenge, risk, and hardship. And it is not for everyone. Those drawn to the mountains can find them exhilarating and irresistible, as well as frustrating and sometimes even deadly. There are qualities to mountaineering that inspire us and bring us to revel in a pursuit that is more than a pastime, more than a sport, a passion, certainly, and sometimes a compulsion. The beauty of wild places could be their undoing as they attract us to them, leaving them touched by human hands and eventually less than wild. We are consuming wilderness at an alarming rate, using it and changing it as we do so. Though we sometimes act otherwise, the mountains don't exist for our amusement. They owe us nothing and they require nothing from us. Hudson Stuck wrote that he and the other members of the first party to climb Mount McKinley in North America felt they had been granted a privileged communion with the high places of the earth. As mountaineers traveling in the wilderness, our minimum charge for this privilege is to leave the hills as we found them, with no sign of our passing. Sensitive to their vulnerability. We must study the places we visit and become sensitive to their vulnerability, then camp and climb in ways that minimize our impact. The privileges we enjoy in the mountains bring While we tread softly in the mountains, it's also time to speak loudly back in town for support of wilderness preservation and sensitive use of our wildlands. As mountaineers, we need to be activists as well as climbers if we want our children to be able to enjoy what we take for granted. Global warming will impact mountain areas in a particularly severe way, posing a very serious threat to alpine nature. Over the last century, global warming has caused all alpine glaciers to recede. In 2006, the volume of water stored as ice was still almost 10% greater than that present as liquid, but the margin is continuing to narrow. Glacier recession has led to an upward migration of alpine plants at an average rate of 2.5 meters per decade. In the long run, lowland plants will displace alpine species to ever higher altitudes until they simply have nowhere to go at all, effectively forcing them into extinction. The expansion of exotic species from parks and gardens is another potential threat posed by climate change and can already be observed in the southern Alps, where evergreen trees are invading the natural forests. The species composition of plant communities could change with consequences as yet unknown for the whole food chain. The invasion of southern pathogens, bringing diseases against which the flora and fauna of the Alps have no defense, could also be a consequence of global warming.